Today we have a new TikTok star turned monster. Meet a former TikTok star with over 1 million followers who did something so insanely stupid that ruined more than one person's life, including herself.
Strange stories.
Our story takes us to the bustling city of Houston, Texas, a place of great opportunity. But today we will focus on the story of one young girl who lived in the suburbs of Houston. Helen was born into a family of two scientists who worked at a nearby medical school. From an early age, Helen traveled the world with her parents and loved Japan and its culture. But when she was finishing high school, her life took a turn for the worse. Since Helen's parents were well off and loved to travel, she grew up with a wide range of hobbies. She loved music, theater, swimming, and even robotics. Her curiosity knew no bounds, and she always wanted to learn more about the world around her. At school, she faced bullying from her classmates, and worse, she developed misophonia, a condition where certain sounds made her feel angry and disgusted. As a teenager, Helen began to identify as a non-binary person, someone who doesn't see themselves as neither male nor female. This made her a target for even more bullying. It seemed she simply could not escape the pain and sadness that surrounded her. That was until her friend invited her to a cosplay festival. Cosplay is when people dress up as characters from anime, video games, TV shows, or movies. Helen found it fascinating and soon discovered a whole world of creativity and boundless possibilities for self-expression in the world of cosplay. For Helen, discovering this world was a turning point in her life. She finally found people who accepted her for who she was and was able to forget the pain and sadness she had experienced in high school. Helen began to devote all her time to cosplay and created her own TikTok to share her achievements. As a result, her channel grew very quickly, and she made a lot of new friends in the cosplay community. 2 years later in 10th grade, Helen met a girl named Mary. Mary was also a cosplayer. They quickly became close friends, bonding over their shared love of cosplay. As you can imagine, through cosplay, Helen found a way to express herself and was able to start socializing with other people. It was a world where she could be who she wanted to be without the judgment and bullying that she faced at school. Although the real world was still hard for her, Helen knew she had friends who would always support her. Now it's time to introduce Mary to you in detail. She was born like Helen in Houston in September 1998. Mary was an extremely successful cosplayer and had a huge fan base on social media. Most often, she dressed up as characters from popular games. Mary described herself as the character Junko from the Danganronpa franchise, where high school students were locked in a school and forced to kill each other to get out. And despite her huge popularity, Mary had some disturbing moments. She was known for her eccentric antics. For example, she dressed up as underage characters and took nude pictures for fans who were willing to pay a lot of money for it. The very act of dressing up underage characters was a source of concern for many people. One of the most controversial moments was when Mary and her friend went to a cemetery where they were recorded dancing on grave sites in cosplay outfits, also leaning on tombstones with their shoes while sitting on them. After the video was published on social media, onlookers strongly condemned the acts, and worse, hundreds of co-workers expressed their disgust at Mary's actions. She then wrote a post saying that they had permission from the cemetery to pose on these graves. But the cemetery caretaker, in his letter, refuted this claim and threatened to arrest Mary if they did it again. Meanwhile, Mary continued to ridicule everyone who was upset by her actions and continued to provoke the situation. Despite all this, Helen became friends with her and they began to see each other often. It was around this time that Helen's mother began to notice her daughter's strange behavior. As it turned out, Mary and her friends often drank and used drugs, and soon Helen began to get into it too. Their acquaintances unrelated to them noted that Mary and her company were drunk or on drugs almost all the time. This caused more tension between Helen and her mother. 2020. After years of schooling, Helen was accepted to a college in another city. By the fall of that year, her mother helped her move, and it was time to start a new adult life with new acquaintances and new problems. The semester began and Helen began to surf the internet less frequently. It seemed as if she had moved on from her old life and started a new one, but unfortunately, as November came around, the COVID cases resumed, and that meant the college would have to close for a while. So Helen moved back to Houston. Here, her parents were also sick, so she decided to live with Mary while her parents were quarantined and she could continue her classes online. Helen had always struggled with her studies and social life, but she had hoped that she would be able to go back to college in the new year. However, her living conditions were far from ideal. She lived in her friend's rented house, which was far from the city and lacked everything she needed. Far from the city and lacked all the necessities. Mary and her housemates spent most of the night drinking, and it made it difficult for Helen to concentrate on her studies. On January 17th, 2021, everything changed. Helen was with Mary and 5 other friends in this ill-fated house. They had been drinking since the evening and continued to drink all night watching movies. At one point, Mary and a friend went to the garage, and there they noticed a gun. Glock, apparently left behind by her ex-boyfriend. She took the gun out of its case for a moment, examined it, and took it with her. Then the company continued watching the movie. Around 1 a.m., Mary remembered that she had a gun. She pulled it out and began fiddling with it. The others knew about the gun, as this was not the first time Mary had displayed it at such parties. The mutual friends asked Mary to shoot. Then, in a state of alcoholic intoxication, she put the gun to her head, made some grimaces, and then just put it down. Then, Helen's love of cosplay and reincarnations allegedly said, "Oh, let me do that too," wanting to match the moment. Mary turned around, put the gun up to Helen's head, and pulled the trigger. Thinking the gun was not loaded, however, it was loaded. At this point, it happened that Mary accidentally shot Helen in the head. She instantly collapsed to the floor. The police and ambulance were called immediately. Mary would later say that she thought the gun was not loaded, and she did not intend to shoot Helen. Mary thought it was perfectly safe because her ex-boyfriend said he had removed all the cartridges, but one was still in the chamber. EMTs arriving on the scene found Helen alive but near death. She had almost no brain activity and was placed on life support. Sadly, she passed away 2 days later on January 19th, 2021. The aftermath of Helen's death was shrouded in mystery for months. There were very few details about what had happened and who was to blame, and many of her college friends believed she had committed suicide. At the same time, there was no indication on Mary's social media that anything catastrophic had happened in her life. She continued to post videos as usual. Mary was still charged with murder and released on $20,000 bail. The bail was disliked by all those who knew any details about the case. 4 days after the incident, Mary posted a video on TikTok announcing that she was taking a break, but came back with a new video 3 weeks later. More disturbingly, some of these new videos were about death and dead bodies despite the whole situation. It seemed as if she was mocking the situation by posting the videos. In August, prosecutors requested that Mary's bail be revoked due to violations of a condition of release. The reason was that she failed to show up for pretrial services and the battery in her GPS tracker ran out. By October, it was clear that Mary was to blame for Helen's death, and she almost immediately deleted her social media accounts. Mary's been charged with second-degree manslaughter, and it is unknown if she pleads guilty, whether the case will go to trial. Her actions could subsequently lead her to 20 years in prison or 2 years and a $20,000 fine. Helen was only 18 at the time of her death. She had a bright future ahead of her with a successful career after college. Unfortunately, she found herself in a crowd that was not to her liking, and Mary's recklessness led to unfortunate consequences.